Hi everyone, welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm Dr. Nandita Shah and you're with Saturdays with SHARAN. If you've attended previous sessions, then you know that at Saturdays with SHARAN, we take a topic each time and we also have a few testimonials from our presenters. So we'll have that as well this time. And then at the end, we have one cooking demo and we have one today as well. Today's topic is uh, overcoming digestive disturbances. And we've kind of done one like that before because we've talked about acidity and GERD and hiatus hernia and stomach and duodenal ulcers. But this time we're going to talk about lower digestive problems in more details. So let me just share my screen and let's start right away. So SHARAN stands for Sanctuary for Health and Reconnection to Animals and Nature. And the reason for this name is because I realized that animals in nature know how to be well. And if they get sick, they know what to do to get well. And they know it through their instincts. And we too have instincts, but we're disconnected from them. And if we can reconnect to our instincts, we can be well again. So let's get on with today's topic. And common digestive disorders are, as you know, constipation, the most common, and diarrhea, and gas, and bloating, and irritable bowel syndrome, and ulcerative colitis, and Crohn's, and celiac disease, colon cancer, ulcers, acidity, GERD, and hiatus hernia. As I said, we're not going to talk about the last four because we've already done a session on that, even on Chef AJ, and you can refer to that. And we're not going to talk about colon cancer, or we're going to talk just a bit on colon cancer. And that's because we've already done a whole session on cancers. Now, what is the main cause of digestive disturbances? And you guessed right, because eating foods that are unnatural to us, eating the kind of foods that we are eating today with chemicals and other toxic substances. And this is pretty much the kind of food that everyone is eating today, isn't it? And so we need to eat foods that nature or God designed for us. And if you think about it, if we were living in nature, we could easily pick fruits and vegetables and we could eat them raw, most of them. But think about the animals that we eat. We can't pounce on them, we can't tear them apart with our hands, and we definitely cannot eat them raw like a true omnivore or a true carnivore could. That means we don't have the anatomy to eat animal flesh. And milk is the same. Milk is the food that every mammal makes for its young. And since we're not calves, it's not our food. So when we consume foods that are not natural to our species, or when we consume things that have been on the shelf for a long time or could be because they have all kinds of toxic substances in it, then we are likely to get sick. Before I go ahead, I want to call in Rosemary. And Rosemary is one of our facilitators. She also attended our 21-day health retreat with a number of problems that she's free from now, and she's passionate about spreading this message. Rosemary, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say before we begin that I have fractured my foot and therefore I am sitting in bed. But because I've been given this opportunity to share my story about digestive disturbances, especially on a platform like Chef AJ's show, I did not want to miss it. And therefore, I am sitting in bed with my foot up. And that is why you see a pillow behind me. Okay. So now, toilets, access to toilets, availability of toilets, location of toilets. Does this sound funny? But this was something of major concern to me whenever I used to step out of home for quite a while, because I needed toilets. This was my situation. I know that this is a very embarrassing topic, but digestive disturbances affect so many of us, and it should not be kept under wraps. It should not be kept covered up. We have to speak out about it. And therefore, I wanted to share today how I achieved freedom from this very distressing and inconvenient and embarrassing condition. So, when I was a baby, it was really difficult to get me to drink cow's milk. I did not like it at all. So my poor grandmother, she used to seat me in a tub of water, and she used to put little baby coconuts, which were there at home, floating around in the water, which I could then play with. And while distracted thus, she would feed me milk. But I did not like it at all. And I have been told stories about this, how I used to really make a fuss about it. Then during childhood, I distinctly remember feeling extremely bloated and uncomfortable after drinking milk. I would be given milk flavored with a little coffee to make it bearable to drink it. So I used to drink it, but afterwards I felt uncomfortable. Now, as I grew up, the amount of coffee increased and the amount of milk decreased, and therefore there was less discomfort. But once I went to university and I was staying in hostel lodgings, where the food that I got was not very good quality, digestive disturbances came back. I used to suffer from diarrhea and constipation. And this continued, into my adulthood. But it was really when I went away to London, because my husband was posted there. And at that time, I was a busy mom of 2 little children. It was then that things became really bad. In London, we had access to processed meats and we had access to frozen meals, which as a busy mom, I took advantage of to supplement home cooking, and I would feed these to my family. But I suffered, and I did not know that it was because of these things, that it was because of this food that I was suffering. I thought that I always had a sensitive stomach, and therefore things were bad, and it was just becoming worse. So I used to suffer sudden diarrhea. I used to suffer constipation. I used to suffer bloating and discomfort, cramps. Also, I had fatigue and I had allergies. I had intolerances. Imagine, not being able to eat too much of an apple, only a small bit of an apple. Because if I had too much of an apple, even a whole apple could make me feel uncomfortable and, have embarrassing social consequences. So I avoided apple. Then we returned to India about 9 years later, and things became much worse, even though I was having home-cooked foods. Of course, we had meat or fish or eggs daily. One or the other of this we would have daily. And I remember it was so bad that I used to carry loperamide capsules around with me, to decrease motility if I had an episode of diarrhea. And I even took these tablets and capsules as a preventive measure, so that if traveling, if going out, if going somewhere important, I wouldn't suffer from, diarrhea. And I used to hurry back after meals out with friends or with family. And people used to ask me, what is this? Why don't you stay on? Why do you have to leave so quickly? But because it was so embarrassing, I did not want to, tell people that I'm going home because I need access to a toilet. So I also had allergies, which became worse. And I had other food intolerances, which became evident after coming to India, because there were guavas that I could not eat. There was sapodilla that I could not eat. So I used to avoid all these fruits, delicious fruits. About 7 years ago, I got introduced to the whole food plant-based diet, which I adopted for weight loss because I suffered from being overweight and I was desperate to lose weight. One, because my family has a history of diabetes, and two, because people used to remark on my weight, and I myself was uncomfortable with how much weight I had, how overweight I was. But I tried many things, and nothing helped. Nothing was working. Also, to do exercise and to go out for very brisk walks, it was a little difficult for me because I used to feel fatigued. So I was really desperate. But once I adopted the whole food plant-based diet, I started losing weight. I went down in size and I was happy. However, I must say that, I did not achieve the kind of results that I was hoping for. I felt that it might be because I had not fully eliminated dairy. I used to have yogurt, dairy yogurt, because I felt that the probiotics in the dairy yogurt helped me, in my gut issues. And whether factual or not, whether based on real stuff or not, I was convinced that the dairy yogurt was helping me because of the probiotics, and so I did not want to give it up. Then I had an opportunity to attend a 21-day health retreat held by Dr. Nandita's foundation, SHARAN, at Gokarna in India. And I had several goals for it because I wanted to improve my health further. I wanted to lose further weight, but I also wanted to wean myself off dairy yogurt. And I thought no better place to do that than at a retreat in a resort with toilets nearby. So at the retreat, we had a few occasions when we had vegan yogurt in a few dishes. But other than that, for the large part, we did not have any yogurt at all. And I was fine. I was comfortable. I did not suffer any kind of GI distress. And I also found that my allergies became better and I was feeling much better. I was feeling less fatigued. And after leaving the retreat and coming home, I did not again have yogurt. I did not take it up again. But my tummy, my digestive system has been very happy, has been calm, has been really working wonderfully well, and it has gone from strength to strength. I also became free of other issues like allergies. My fatigue went away. I dropped 2 dress sizes, and I'm a happy bunny now. So I'm really very, very passionate about this whole food plant-based diet now. I'm fairly strict and compliant with it Maybe when I travel, I might have a little oil in something. Even then, I try and see whether I can get food that is compliant as much as possible. And I'm so passionate about it that I'm now an ambassador for this. And I happily help and coach people transition to a whole food plant-based diet so that they can also improve their health. Thank you so much for a patient listening.
Thank you, Rosemary. That is inspiring. And it's really great that, you're not only free of all those allergies, your stomach complaints have gone, you've lost weight, and you're looking good. And I know how passionate you are. And you've helped us even through our training programs and made such a difference. So congratulations for all that you've done, Rosemary. So now I'm going to go back to my screen share. And we are going to talk about how to get rid of these problems. And this is the thing that we always talk about in every episode, that when we take medicines, we are working at the level of symptoms. And so we're removing symptoms with every dose, but they come back. Because we haven't removed the problem, because we haven't removed the cause of the problem. So here we try to minimize medicines, we try to understand the cause of the problem and remove it. And one of the biggest causes that we already talked about is eating foods that are wrong for our species. And so that's what Rosemary did. She stopped eating foods that were not plant-based. She stopped eating foods that were refined and switched to totally whole. And actually, she stopped eating non-organic foods and went to totally organically grown foods the way nature would grow them. And she's totally fine now. Isn't that amazing? So she had constipation and diarrhea and bloating, and we're going to discuss all of these conditions. What are the causes of constipation? Remember, we are going to look at the causes of each disease so that we can remove them and not suffer from these problems anymore. So the biggest cause of constipation is lack of fiber, because fiber is what forms the bulk of stool. And if we don't eat any fiber, how would we have good stools, right? So fiber is only found in plants. And if plants are refined, there's less fiber or no fiber. That's why we want to have only whole plants. Whole means no oil, no sugar, no white rice, no white flour, but rather fruits and vegetables, if possible, not peeled, or peel only those that you can peel with your bare hands. That means for vegetables, you would only peel onions and garlic and peas, right? So something like that. And fruits, you would peel bananas and papaya, but not, and papaya only because you could eat it like this, or a monkey would eat the inner part and throw out the skin. But we wouldn't peel apples or pears or peaches because you can't peel them with your bare hands. Another thing is bad toilet habits, holding on. Like if you feel the urge to go, but then you don't have a toilet nearby and you hold on, and then the stool becomes harder and harder to release. Also, antacids with calcium or aluminum can cause constipation. And that's why we really want to avoid any kind of medication. Other medications can also cause constipation. And so we want to avoid all medications just so that we don't unnaturally get constipation. And that goes for aluminum utensils as well. Avoid all forms of aluminum. And that also means the TV dinners or whatever comes in an aluminum thing that you're going to put in the oven. So just avoid all forms of aluminum cans as well. And then not drinking enough water. This is important. And one of the reasons I found that people don't drink enough water is because they're drinking things in place of water, like Coke or tea or coffee. And these are dehydrating substances because they're more concentrated than our own body fluids. And so that forces fluid out of the body into the gut to take it all out because it's um, it's not isotonic. So then we pass it out through the urine. So we are dehydrating our body. So we want to drink enough water. Our body always tells us when we're thirsty, but we also have ideas of that we shouldn't drink while we're eating, or we shouldn't drink after we've eaten. And then long after we've eaten, we've forgotten to drink, and so we don't drink at all. This happens sometimes, especially when we're on a healthy path. And so my suggestion is always listen to your body. Your body knows when you should drink. So drink when thirsty, and of course, eat when you're hungry. And lack of exercise, lack of movements can cause constipation as well. And even a tumor or growth in the bowels can cause constipation because it's an obstruction and doesn't allow the stools to move easily. So we need to understand what is the cause and work on removing the cause. Now, bloating is another big problem. And what are the causes of bloating? Number one cause, and you saw that in rosemary, number one cause is dairy, even a little. We are all, or almost all of us, are lactose intolerant. And many of us don't know it, but stopping dairy makes a huge difference. I recently had a patient who, I mean, he's not even my patient yet, he's going to be, but he attended a talk that I was doing in Bangalore. And I told them about the reason that we are whole, plant-based and organic. And he switched overnight. And he said, now I was a meat eater, but I don't eat any of that. I haven't had a bit of dairy for 15 days, and I feel so much lighter. Just imagine. Most of us don't know it. Then mixing fruits with other food, such as having fruit after the meal as a dessert. So the meal takes a fair amount of time to digest. And when you have fruit after the meal, the fruit sits on top, but fruit could digest quickly. So the fruit sits on top and ferments while the meal is digesting. So if you do have a plate with fruit and other food, I would suggest always eating fruit first because fruit digests quickly and can move on and give space to the other food to digest. Then mixing melons like cantaloupe, watermelon, and muskmelon with other fruits, because fruits and melons have two different digestive processes. So you can mix melons, but don't mix it with other fruit. Then too much variety in one meal. Have you ever been to a buffet and you found that you want to try a bit of everything and then you don't feel so good after? One of the reasons is that we might be overeating, but the other reason is that there's too much variety and each kind of food has different digestive processes. So your whole digestive system is working all at once, and some things are digesting while other things are waiting, causing gas formation. And then gluten, if there's gluten intolerance, and so many of us have gluten intolerance, and that's because even wheat is not our food. If we see green fields of wheat or even dry wheat on the farm, we don't feel like going and picking it. Our mouth doesn't water. And that's just because it's not our food. So best to avoid gluten and wheat if you can. And then certain medications cause bloating, especially antibiotics or chemotherapeutic drugs, because these destroy the gut microbiome. And we're going to talk more about the gut microbiome. But for now, The gut microbiome consists of a lot of good bacteria that help in digestion. But if we have antibiotics or chemotherapy, this destroys the microbiome, and then that function doesn't work anymore. So it's really important to minimize medications wherever possible. And then probiotics. We think that probiotics are good, and often they upset the gut microbiome because you're putting in one or two species of bacteria, whereas in your gut, there are different populations of bacteria, all in balance, and then you put in some new and it's out of balance. Probiotics, especially man-made probiotics, are rarely good for us. Food cooked in advance. If you cook your food in advance, it's best to put it in the fridge and then take it out just before eating so that it doesn't decompose, because that can cause bloating as well. So don't cook and leave it out. Cook and leave it in the fridge. Of course, many of us have to cook in advance, but we don't have to leave it out to decay. Then lack of fiber. We talked about how only plants produce fiber, and so we should eat more plants, more raw, and whole plants, of course. And then not chewing properly. And so many of us are guilty of that. So what they say about chewing is really true. Chew, chew, chew till your food becomes liquid and then only swallow it, because the first part of digestion happens in the mouth, especially for carbohydrates. And then nibbling all day long, too many small meals. Have you ever done that? Sometimes when we're at home and we're not too busy, then we have breakfast and then pass the kitchen and nibble a few things, and then it's lunchtime. And then again, after lunch, we pass the kitchen a few times before dinner. That's too many small meals. So I recommend maximum 5 meals a day: breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, and dinner. That's the maximum. But if you, and anything is a meal, anything that you eat, even if you just pop one peanut in your mouth in between meals, consider that a meal, right? Because you're getting your digestive system working. So I myself consume most of the time only 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's enough for me. There are people who even consume only 2 meals a day, or even just 1 meal a day. But we need to listen to our body and do what's right for us. And if we do that, it will be good. And then constipation, because constipation, when something is stuck in our bowels for a long time, then it decays and leads to toxic buildup, which can cause, bloating because of the bacterial overgrowth. And then antibiotics and probiotics taken in the past. If you've taken antibiotics even 6 months ago, it could still be affecting your microbiome because you haven't been able to rebalance all those families of bacteria to the right way. And that's why it's so important to avoid antibiotics and probiotics if you can, and really depend on good, healthy foods. And then pesticides in non-organic or genetically modified foods. This is a big problem. Genetically modified foods produce their own pesticides, so they inherently contain pesticides. And what we can do is look for organic foods, and most of the time you can get them, and it's really good to choose only organic. Now, I do know that organic can be expensive, but local and seasonal organic is usually inexpensive, and that's the best food anyway. And not soaking beans or lentils enough. So it would be really good to soak a bean or a lentil every night so that it's been soaked, and then you cook it, And that will give you something to eat every day. For some people, beans and lentils aren't suitable. Always listen to your body. If it doesn't work for you, don't consume it. Now, the next topic is diarrhea. What are the causes of diarrhea? Number one, infection or food poisoning. So the infection could be amoebiasis or giardiasis or even bacterial infections. And the reason your body has produced diarrhea is so that it can throw out those germs as fast as possible. So it's really important not to take something to plug back the stools or to slow down the motility of the bowels. It's good to allow it to go out and just take some oral rehydration fluid. You can make it yourself at home by taking some water, squeezing in some lemon juice or even some orange juice, and then a little bit of sugar or a sweetener. White sugar obviously is not the best, but maybe some brown sugar or some sweetener, and then a little bit, a pinch of salt so that you keep the electrolyte balance normal and keep drinking such fluids for energy and to rehydrate until everything is flushed out. Only if it doesn't um, get in control after, say, maybe a day or it's too causing too much debility, you may want to make a change. And then food poisoning. This could be due to E. coli or salmonella, and it's usually due to animal products. But nowadays, because the fertilizers are made with animal products, it could even be in plants. So I think it's not a huge concern. Most of us who have a high immune system are unlikely to suffer from these things, where if we wash our foods well and if we're eating only plants, but it can happen, and this needs to be looked after by a professional. Then stress and anxiety. Have you noticed that when you're stressed, you might have rumbling in the stomach or even an episode of diarrhea? When I was young, this used to happen to me. When I was anxious, I could get diarrhea, and I always had to use the toilet before some important, anything important. Like if I were to go on stage, I would probably be, as they should say, shitting in my pants. I would be anxious. And excess fiber. Sometimes when you have too much fiber, it can cause diarrhea. Now in India, we have a plant called moringa, which is known all over the world, and you get green powders made of moringa, and that's very fibrous. So I remember once I put moringa in my smoothie, and it didn't even taste good because I put too much, and then I had diarrhea. So it's so interesting that nature already warns you because it didn't taste good, but I drank it anyway. And the reason it didn't taste good is because there was too much moringa. So you can use such things, but make sure that your food always tastes good, because your body can only warn you through symptoms, right? So we should always be thankful for symptoms, because that's our body speaking to us, and take action to remove the cause of the symptoms and not just medicines to remove the symptoms. And then food intolerances, like Rosemary had so many food intolerances. She was just allergic to them until she got off the foods that she wasn't supposed to be eating. And then these intolerances miraculously went away. And then medications like antibiotics and chemo and radiation, which destroys the microbiome altogether. And then, you're not able to digest food properly and maybe not even absorb it. And then irritable bowel syndrome, and we'll talk more about that soon. And inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. And these are also autoimmune diseases, and so is celiac disease. And we are going to discuss these separately. So before I go on, I want to invite Shalini to speak now. And Shalini is a facilitator with SHARAN. She's also a nutritionist and a consultant. And Shalini had a difficult story too. Shalini, would you like to share your story?
Yes, definitely, doctor. I would love to.
Please go ahead.
I hail from a Rajasthani family, and our diet has always been high on dairy products. I would consume 2 glasses of milk every single day, eat cottage cheese, butter, clarified butter, and every kind of Indian sweets which was high on dairy, never knowing that it was causing my stomach upset. Anyways, like every child is bringing up in a family, I was having everything. As a result of it, I developed asthma at a very young age, maybe in my teens. And because of asthma, I had to take a lot of steroids, nebulizer. I would get allergies, cough, cold. I would end up taking antibiotics, which landed me into irritable bowel syndrome, not knowing what was it. I would always have bloating, sometimes explosive diarrheas immediately after meals, sometimes mild pain to major pains, a kind of discomfort, always 24 hours 7. There were days when I would not like to function at all. In fact, I did not want to function or meet anyone. I ended up in anxiety, having depression, putting on weight, because the moment I would clean my stomach, I would like to eat again something, and because of my steroids, I was putting on weight. I was totally frustrated. Then 10 years back, one of the doctors nearby told me that, why don't you try leaving dairy? Okay, I tried that because I wanted some solution, as nothing else was working. When I left dairy, 50 to 60%, I started feeling better. And it was an aha moment. Wow. My asthma attacks came down. My washroom visits reduced. But still, there was some kind of bloating every time. Then I realized I had gluten sensitivity. And I understood what hold true for my grandparents and great-grandparents was not true for me at all. I had to quit wheat and gluten completely. Then another 20% I felt better, 70% I was another more aha moment. But that 20-30% I was still struggling. No, something is still there, as I was still feeling some kind of discomfort in my stomach all the time. And when you really want to feel and get better, universe conspires you to get that particular environment or meet that particular person. And that's how I landed in 2017 at Dr. Nandita Shah's seminar of reversing diabetes and hypertension. And there I learned about a major, beautiful combination of what kind of foods I'm supposed to eat, how I'm supposed to eat. And I understood where I was going wrong previously. I was eating huge, large meals. In spite of quitting dairy, I was eating large meals. I was having too many combinations of meal at a time. So I would have 2 to 3 kind of carbohydrates or salad, very little salad, but a lot of veggies, cooked veggies, and different types of items at a time. Then finally, when I attended the whole one day seminar, I understood to eat small portions according to my body type, go gradually, add certain foods in the diet. And after that, it was no looking back. I was feeling so much better that I joined Dr. Nandita Shah, got trained under her as a nutritionist and a facilitator. And it's my passion now to make this world a healthier, better place. And believe me, my family was majorly concerned what I will be eating if I left dairy and gluten. But to my surprise and to my disciplined life, I experimented with every kind of cuisine under the sky. Mexican, be it Italian or Indian, South Indian, Thai, Pan Asian, Punjabi, everything I tried. I make every kind of plant-based butter at home, plant-based milk at home. I make all kind of sweets with those plant-based milk and butter. And I eat variety of so-called junk food, but within the guidelines of whole food plant-based diet. So I love my pizzas with cashew cheese. I love my Indian snacks too without oil and butter. And I'm so much at a happy space. So a happy gut and a happy brain with a happy life. I'm so grateful to Dr. Nandita. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Shalini, for all that you've done and all that you've achieved. And you lost a lot of weight as well, didn't you?
Yes, 25 pounds, doctor.
Congratulations. So, and Shalini, you look beautiful now, and that's really wonderful. And I'm sure that that's also very inspiring to the other people. So, allergies and irritable bowel syndrome, and imagine it was just because of dairy and gluten, and these can be removed easily, right? And actually, you're enjoying your food now, maybe more than ever before.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Okay, so back to my screen share now. And we're going to talk about irritable bowel syndrome, the kind of issue that Shalini had, and also Rosemary in a sense. So what are the symptoms? Abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea and constipation, nausea and vomiting, gas, fatigue and weakness, mood changes, depression and anxiety. Remember, that's what Shalini said, and Rosemary talked about the fatigue and weakness. And the causes of irritable bowel syndrome are number one, dairy. Number two, obviously meat. These are the foods that we're not meant to eat. And of course, wheat as well, right? So wrong foods, a Western diet, refined foods, stress, and of course, genetics as well. But genetics is only the gun. All the rest is the trigger, and therefore it's so important to look into everything. And that's why at SHARAN, we also have counseling, and we have a lot of programs to deal with mental health so that we can reduce our stress, anxiety, and depression. But what is interesting is that when we are stressed, we produce adrenaline and stress hormones. When animals are stressed, they produce stress hormones. And animals in the food industry are always stressed. That means when we consume dairy and meat, we're always consuming stress hormones. And that's why if you're completely on a plant-based diet, you may have already experienced that your stress levels have decreased. Check and see if that's true for you. So now solutions for irritable bowel syndrome are: allow the gut to heal by eating only those things that are suitable and slowly introducing more. So if someone has a really severe case of irritable bowel syndrome, I might stop all the food except for 2 or 3 things that I'm sure suit them. It could be something as simple as white rice, potatoes, and bananas. And after some time, when everything is under control, and we could introduce one new food at a time, like we would for an infant, one new item at a time, allow the gut to get used to it, and then the next one. So you might start with something like bananas, potatoes, and white rice, and then you might add in some steamed carrots or maybe another fruit, depending on what the patient says, because instinctively our body knows its needs. And so the body will guide you, and you will be able to add one more thing at a time to slowly build up the gut. In fact, it's even possible that raw food may not be suitable. And there I want to tell you that, that's the beauty of bananas, that they have soluble fibers, so it's not irritating for the bowels, especially if the bowels are inflamed. And so it's really helpful. So if you can't eat anything at all, you may start with just bananas and slowly build up, or just green smoothies and slowly build up. So we have to check what works and stick to 100% plant-based foods. And obviously, don't put any toxic items in your body. So make sure that everything is organic as well. And slowly wean off medicines if you're on any. Now we're going to talk about autoimmune diseases. And these are, for the gut, common ones: Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis and celiac disease. But before I go on, I want to invite Manish to share his story. So, Manish, would you like to share your story of what all happened to you? And Manish had three autoimmune diseases together. And Manish has healed so remarkably. And he's one of our facilitators as well. He wants to spread this message to the world. And he's done a lot of great work, both in yoga and plant-based nutrition. And Manish, over to you.
Thank you, doctor. So I'm Manish. I'm from Mumbai, India, and I'm 40 years old right now. So my story goes back to when I was 11 years old. So I had certain stomach discomfort, which was diagnosed initially as tuberculosis of the colon, which never healed. So I was like suffering for 14 years. The inflammation was very high in the gut. And because of that, I got ankylosing spondylitis, I got autoimmune hemolytic anemia, and all the medications that I took also brought down my sperm count. So I suffered for a good 14 years of my life, wherein I was not able to eat normally. There was a lot of vomiting, a lot of nausea, a lot of loose stools, and this went on, and I suffered like entire teenage. I suffered a lot, uh, but I never gave up. I kept on trying. I happened to land up at the Yoga Institute, Mumbai, wherein they taught me like lifestyle changes, certain changes in diet, wherein they stopped all the foods that increased my inflammation. So earlier my diet was basically junk food, all the Western diet, the standard American diet. And I used to eat a lot of sugar. I used to eat a lot of refined foods. So they stopped all the factors that increase the inflammation in the gut. And because of that, magic happened. So on my loose stool stopped. I was able to digest foods better, and I just gave it a try. So they worked a lot on my mental health also. So stress was a big factor because of so many conditions. There was a lot of stress, so they worked on my mind also. I started exercising daily, so it was like a holistic approach. But main was my diet. So my diet turned 180 degrees, and within 6 to 8 months, gradually all my medicines were tapered off. And for the past 16 years now, I'm off all medications. So initially, my diet was not completely whole food plant based because I didn't never knew that dairy and gluten can be like such big factors. So I happened to land up at a SHARAN retreat in 2022, where I came to know a better way of living, a better lifestyle, a better diet. And therein, like I was thinking that I was completely healed, but after switching to a completely whole food plant based diet and mainly raw. So my diet currently is 80% raw. So I came to know after the retreat that I have fatty liver. I thought that I was eating very healthy, but I had a fatty liver. I weighed 75 kgs then. And when this was a big revelation, so that I thought that I'm eating very healthy, I got a diagnosis of fatty liver. And I then completely changed my diet to a whole food plant based. I stopped all forms of dairy, be it paneer, be it ghee, and I stopped gluten also. And initially, the diet that I learned from the Yoga Institute, it was a kind of separation. I never enjoyed it. It was not tasty. But now I can proudly say that I start my day with a dessert. So the green smoothie that we have at Sharan is like a dessert. I absolutely love it. I look forward to my breakfast every day. And the food actually tastes very good when it's without oil, which is not refined. You actually get to taste all the six tastes of nature, and I'm just loving it. I'm down by 10 kgs in the last 1.5 years, and my BMI is normal. Fatty liver has also disappeared along with Crohn's disease, which I was diagnosed in 2008. So doctors told that I have to be on medications for the rest of my life, and I proved medical science wrong. The all the inflammation markers, fecal calprotectin, which was very high initially, that came back normal. The colonoscopy, which showed ulcers in my terminal ileum, that also disappeared. And I'm just spreading this message through Sharan, through my own yoga classes, that yes, yeah, there is problem. Medications are required initially, but without a change in lifestyle, there is no magic pill that can cure you completely. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish, for sharing that. And Manish didn't just get free of his digestive problems, he's better in his ankylosing spondylitis, hemolytic anemia, and also the sperm count. Manish, please speak about those.
Yes. So as I said initially, that because of all the medications that I took, a doctor told me that I have azoospermia, that my sperms don't exist at all, and it is impossible to like conceive. My wife cannot conceive. So my first child, she was through IVF and through a donor sperm. We adopted our second child, and when we adopted our second child, I was following a very healthy diet, and I switched to completely raw for about 20 days. So there was no protein in my diet; it was completely raw. And within a month after our adoption of second child, my wife conceived. So again, a magic happened with respect to my sperm count also. So this is like living example of how living foods, live foods can actually heal you.
Right. And Manish, you help so many people out of ankylosing spondylitis. So don't miss telling them about that too.
Yes, yes. So I made it a life mission in 2014 when this worked on me, on my few students. I became a yoga teacher, and I'm made it a mission that I want to help people with such inflammatory conditions because people are suffering. They don't know that there is some other way out also. That along with medications, please don't stop medications on your own. Medications are initially important to bring down the inflammation, but we also have to take charge of our life through the right diet, exercises, right mindset. So basically, a holistic approach that I teach through my classes through Sharan, and it's a wonderful thing that so many people, hundreds of people have recovered in the last 10 years, and I just continue to do this. I'm just loving it. Yeah. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, Manish, for sharing. So just imagine how inspiring because hemolytic, autoimmune hemolytic anemia, autoimmune ankylosing spondylitis, autoimmune Crohn's disease, irreversible problems gone. Congratulations, Manish, for making those lifestyle changes. And Manish comes from a big business family, but he has made it his life's mission to teach yoga and health to people, much to the dismay of his family, but much to his own happiness. So
But they have like they agree now. They are no longer like in disagreement. They are supporting me in my venture now. Yeah.
that's really wonderful.
Thank you, doctor.
Congratulations, Manish. Okay, so back to my screen share, and we are going to talk about Crohn's now. So the characteristics of these autoimmune diseases, Crohn's and uh, sorry, ulcerative colitis and celiac disease, these autoimmune diseases, are that they're all serious. Doctors say that these may not get cured. You won't die from it, but it's difficult to get cured. And truly, autoimmune diseases are cyclical. So you may have a period of being sick and then a period a little better and then again sickness and better, and but it never really goes away. But Manish has proved them wrong. And we also have so many cases of autoimmune diseases that have improved tremendously. Also, many of them have anemia and leaky gut. So what is leaky gut? Here, if you see, there are two images, and if you look at the first image, then the cells are close to each other, and the junction between the cells is pretty tight, and so food cannot enter from the gut through the cell into the bloodstream. Nothing can. And that's a normal tight junction. But a leaky, inflamed gut means that the cells are inflamed, there's space between the cells, the foreign proteins in the food can enter the bloodstream, and then it causes an antibody formation against that foreign protein. And you can learn more about this in our talk on autoimmune diseases. And so now this foreign protein stimulates antibody formation against our own body cells, and that's what constitutes an autoimmune disease. So the causes of Crohn's are, besides these foreign proteins, the foreign proteins come from foods that are unnatural to our species. That means animal products and gluten. Then number two, vaccinations and even viruses. Some medications can also cause autoimmune diseases, and it's possible to, when we have a blood transfusion or an organ transplant, our body is likely to reject that. Now, it doesn't happen with a blood transfusion so much because they're careful to choose the right blood group, but with an organ transplant, unless you're on immunosuppressive treatment your entire life, you can have the transplant will be rejected. So it's really important to take that immunosuppressive treatment. And that's why it's really important to work before we get these autoimmune diseases or these issues on our health. That's why it's important to take charge of your health as soon as you learn why your health is so important, because honestly, health is our only wealth. So the causes of Crohn's are number one, smoking as well. Certain medications such as antibiotics, birth control pills, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin or ibuprofen. I mean, these are things that people just take out of their medicine cupboard and pop it in without thinking. And, once again, I want to stress on the fact that symptoms are the only way our body can speak to us. And to take away symptoms with medicines like this is like saying, shut up to your body, saying that, hey, I don't want to listen to what you're saying. So the only way out is to understand why we got the symptoms and remove the cause. And then a high-fat diet and stress, all of these can cause Crohn's. And you can imagine when Manish was young and eating all that food that people normally eat at his age at that time, and then getting all these diseases could have caused so much stress. It's stressful to be this sick, right? So it's important that, these diseases kind of form a vicious cycle. And then the medicines you take cause fatty liver, and Manish had fatty liver as well. And all of these are better now. Isn't that great? So the symptoms of Crohn's are diarrhea, fever, fatigue, abdominal pain and cramping, blood in stool, and mouth sores, and reduced appetite and weight loss, and pain or drainage around the anus. That means you can get leaking around the anus. So Crohn's actually affects the entire gut. It can affect the upper digestive tract, the lower digestive tract, the large and small intestines, stomach, esophagus, every part, and causes inflammation everywhere. That was what Manish was suffering from. Now, as opposed to that, ulcerative colitis, as the name suggests, colitis means inflammation of the colon. So the large intestine is affected by ulcerative colitis, and there is inflammation of the inner lining of the large intestine and even ulceration. So it's a chronic inflammatory bowel disease that usually only affects the innermost lining of the intestine, but it can be so inflamed that you may not be able to eat raw easily. No matter, it'll happen that, if you eat the right food, slowly the body always works to heal. And so you could start with steamed foods, soft foods, mashed foods. If edges bother you, mashed foods, blend them and eat them. But slowly, slowly, the body recovers and heals. Symptoms could be rectal bleeding, bloody diarrhea, abdominal cramps and pain. This increases the risk of colon cancer also because of the ulcers in the gut. And the standard treatment consists of medications to reduce the inflammation, immunosuppressive medications as well, and even surgery if required. And as Manish said, we should not suddenly stop the medications, especially the immunosuppressive medications. They may even be required to stop the disease from proliferating, but then we have to put everything right and allow the body to heal and slowly wean off all those medications. And then celiac disease. And celiac disease is an immune reaction to gluten, which is found in wheat, barley, and rye. And that's why gluten, and you saw from Manish's case that autoimmune diseases can be more than one in one person, which is why it's wise to avoid gluten in autoimmune diseases anyway, because it causes a reaction. Over time, it creates an inflammation that damages the small intestine lining. So just to be clear, Crohn's affects the whole digestive tract. Crohn's affects the whole digestive tract, and the ulcerative colitis affects only the large colon, and celiac disease affects only the small intestine. So each one affects different parts of the body. And the classic symptoms are diarrhea, and other symptoms include bloating, wind, fatigue, low blood count, and osteoporosis. And there are people who have no symptoms as well. Now, because it affects the small intestine, and the small intestine is where all the nutrients are from the foods are absorbed, it can lead to malnutrition and malabsorption. This is another problem with celiac disease. But it's easier to control because a strict gluten-free diet can help manage the symptoms and promote intestinal healing. So it's important to diagnose and then remove the cause and expect the body to heal in any disease, not just digestive disturbances. So the treatment of autoimmune digestive issues are remove the cause. That means the foreign protein, the animal proteins, the foreign protein which may come from vaccinations. And we've seen that after COVID and COVID vaccinations, because both the virus and the vaccinations can trigger autoimmune disease states, there are so many more people with autoimmune diseases. There are more than 100 different kinds of autoimmune diseases, and here we're just discussing some of them. Then listen carefully to the body, because the body always guides us on how to heal. And initially, we may need anti-inflammatory or immunosuppressive drugs, but the goal should be to wean ourselves off them, because if you're on an immunosuppressive drug, then you're more prone to infections, and that's another whole problem. Now, I told you that we'll just mention colon cancer because it's so important and so common. And one of the main causes of colon cancer is lack of fiber. And that's why red meat is a known cause of colon cancer. But honestly, any animal protein is a cause of colon cancer. And dairy is also a cause of colon cancer because dairy and meat are the same. Neither of them have fiber. So the solution is high fiber plus removing all the causes of cancer. And you can learn more about that in our episode on cancer. So now we're going to come to how do you build your gut health? And first of all, we have to understand the microbiome, which is, there are more bacteria in our body than our own body cells, equal or more. Just imagine how many bacteria. So we are living in a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria, and we are never alone. So without the bacteria, we cannot survive. And scientists have done experiments where they put people in totally hygienic, like a kind of a closed space, which is totally hygienic and no microbes at all. And that causes sickness because we live in a symbiotic relationship with microbes. And truly, if you think of it, we live in a symbiotic relationship with everything else on the planet. But right now, we'll talk about the gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome is actually our second brain, which is why you can understand that, if we are stressed and the microbiome is affected, we get diarrhea. So the gut and the brain are intricately connected, which is why we often talk about gut feeling, right? And the microbes in our digestive tract feed on fiber. And that's why the more fiber we have, the healthier our gut microbiome is going to be. And therefore, we want to eat whole plant foods, and that too without any toxin like pesticides. Now, in case we are unable to build up a healthy microbiome, scientists have a new way, which is fecal implants. Imagine fecal implants. What they do is they take the feces of someone with a really healthy gut microbiome and implant it in the patient so that those microbes can multiply and form a balance. But of course, this cannot be done without their food. So we may need to make sure that they have plenty of fiber as well. Fiber is known as a prebiotic. Pre means you need it before you can produce those microbes. So a few do's and don'ts for digestive health. Do's: increase the fiber. Even if you can't digest raw, make sure that you have whole foods steamed and gently increase the raw foods as you can. And make sure to have a nutrient-dense, high-quality diet. That means eat all the colors of the rainbow every day if you can, and high-quality foods. That means go for the best quality you can. Now, often we go for the best quality when we're buying our car or buying our clothes. We buy name brand various things, even laptops and computers and phones, but we don't think so many times about what we're putting in our mouth. And honestly, if you're sick, like Rosemary or Shalini or Manish, you know that health is the only true wealth, because without health, you can't do anything. All those name brands mean nothing at all. And avoid harmful substances. That means tobacco, drugs, coffee, tea, alcohol, anything that you would not give to a baby because you know it's harmful. Don't put it in your own body. And avoid meat and dairy, sugar, alcohol, refined substances, all kinds of drugs, and of course, unnecessary medications. And do you know that most medications are unnecessary once we start working on our health? So I conduct a 21-day health retreat where we do all the tests in the beginning and all the tests in the end. That's the retreat that Rosemary came to. And there we cut down medications as people improve with the fabulous healthy buffet meals that they're eating and all the other things we're doing. And in 21 days, many people are off at least 70% of the medication, sometimes 100%. And then avoid tobacco. I already said that, tea and coffee, and eating at the wrong time. You know, nowadays we're eating until late into the night while we're working or watching movies or whatever. And it's really important that the digestive system has a routine as well. So the morning routine for the digestive system is elimination. And then the next routine is assimilation. And the final, rather eating and consumption and then assimilation. And so we should not be eating in the middle of the night because then we're upsetting this routine. So what can we expect when we heal the gut? So many things. So number one, better moods and hormonal balance. Imagine if you cut out all those hormones by cutting out all the animal products. So you're not taking in hormones from outside, then you are already improving your hormonal balance, reduced inflammation and pain, a stronger immune system. Remember, the gut is part of the immune system. And naturally, if you're eating high quality foods and absorbing them, better energy, improved cognitive function, our brain works better. Clearer skin, that is a given. Lower disease risk because we've improved our immunity. Reduced seasonal allergies, and you saw reduced allergies in rosemary as well as in shalini. Less food sensitivities and less anxiety and depression. Isn't it worth it? Isn't it worth it to feed your gut correctly? So now a summary. The cause of most digestive disturbances is our modern diet, and therefore it's important to change as soon as possible. Our body is always working to heal. So recognize that your body is healing and don't try to come in the way. Prevent such disturbances by always putting high quality foods in the body and high quality thoughts in the mind. And in order to do that, we may need to cut down on TV shows and movies and read high quality books and listen to high quality music and meditate and do things that raise our spiritual level. And then heal by listening carefully to the body. And avoid all harmful substances, obviously. So SHARAN has a 5-point plan. It's 5, it's easy to remember that everything should be plant-based, everything should be whole, everything should be organic, and vitamin B12 and vitamin D should be checked and supplemented if required. How can SHARAN support you? We have almost 600 recipes, and we are going to see a cooking demo right now by Vinita from Dubai. And she is one of the people who's helping with the recipes so much as well. And we have publications that you can actually avail of for free download. I'm going to show them to you right now. We have cooking classes all the time that anyone can take because you can view the recording. So do check out our website, do look at the events, do look at the cooking classes because they may be useful to you. And remember, you can just opt for the recording instead of the live class. And that's because of the time difference. And then we have consultations that are done online. They're very thorough and they really make a difference. And of course, we have our retreats as well. And almost every year, we have people from the US joining them. These are the publications that you can download for free. You can see that the recipe book is in 2 Indian languages as well. But SHARAN Healthy Living Book and Timeless Recipes are 2 books that you can avail of for free download from our website as an ebook. So that's it from me, and I'm going to now stop my share and over to you, Vinita. Vinita is going to show us a fermented vegetable dish from North India. It's called kanji, and I love it. Actually, I love all fermented vegetables, and the best part of it is that these are natural and they will never be an overdose of probiotics. And of course, they have the fiber inherently in them. So, Vinita, over to you.
Thank you, Doctor. And thank you so much for the insightful presentation. It was really insightful. And thank you everyone for your testimonials. They were so inspiring because as a young adult, I too had constipation often. And I thought, you know, it was too embarrassing to talk about, and I thought it was normal. But after turning whole food plant-based, I realized what a big difference from not going to the loo 2-3 days in a row to now going 2 to 3 times a day is a huge difference. And it's made a huge difference to my family as well. My children, both of them are following a whole food plant-based lifestyle. My son is 11 and my daughter is 8. And they don't even know what constipation means because they've never faced it. So which is great, right? It's amazing. So today I'm going to share with you a recipe of kanji, like Doctor mentioned. It is from North India. Now, if you notice, worldwide or different parts of the world have different kinds of fermented foods. Like we have sauerkraut, sure you're familiar with that. Kimchi is a popular one, but again, it has a lot of salt in it, so it's good to make your own. There's also different kinds of pickles. In the Middle East, a lot of pickle is used. And of course, in India, pickle is also very common. You'll find it in every household. People love having their pickles. But of course, they use a lot of oil in it. And you'll find an oil-free version on our website. And it's very delicious. But today I'm going to share with you again this recipe, which is very easy to make. It's similar to kombucha. I'm sure you've heard of kombucha as well. It's also a fermented drink. But it uses sugar or jaggery for the fermentation process. But here we're not going to use any sugar. And this is actually a salty drink. I know salty drinks are unheard of in the West. Usually you're very familiar with sugary drinks. But this is a very delicious drink. And like Doctor said, it's one of her favorites. It's one of mine too. I love the punch that the mustard gives in this. So I hope you try it too. And it's very simple to make. You just need a few days. That's the hardest part of the recipe, is to wait for it to ferment. But it's very simple to make. So as Doctor said, we're going to just use some vegetables. Now, traditionally, carrots were used, black carrots, but you can use any kind of vegetables. I'll be using your regular orange carrots, and here I have beetroot. Just cut them into batonets, which means that they are about 2 inches long and about ½ an inch thick. That's a good size because they do wilt a little bit after a few days of fermentation. But they will still remain crunchy and delicious to have. So these are the 2 vegetables I'll be using, and we're using some mustard seeds. Now, this is what it looks like. In the West, probably you'll find them bottled like in jars already ground up, like Dijon mustard, which you can use here. But if you have mustard seeds available, you can just crush them up using a mortar and pestle, or you can just grind them in your coffee grinder and you will get a powder. So I'm using a powder, mustard powder. And here I have some black salt. Now, black salt in India is called kala namak. It has a slightly sulfur taste. It's a unique taste. And if you don't have that available, you can use any kind of unrefined salt that you have available. So we're just going to add these ingredients to a jar. Now, it's good to use a glass jar if you have, and use a loose fitted lid because you want the bacteria, you know, to ferment. Now, if you don't have a lid, you can also use a cloth and just use a rubber band to secure it. So all I'm going to do now is just add everything to the jar. You can also use any kind of glass bottle if you have, or any kind of jar. So I'm just going to add in the beetroot and the carrots. And like I said, you can use a variety and ferment vegetables like this very simply. We also have a nice recipe for Israeli pickles on our website. That's also very delicious. You can try that out. In India, we also use yogurt. Like Rosemary had mentioned that she couldn't give up yogurt because she thought that was a good probiotic. Of course, we have tons of recipes. We have a very nice yogurt which is made out of peanuts and rice. It's a very simple one and turns out really great too. So here's the mustard seeds, the crushed mustard seeds, and the black salt. And all we do now is just add some water. So the measurements will be given below in the description, and also it's available on our website. We have tons of recipes, over 600 recipes there to help you. So that's it. It's as simple as that. Of course, when you're cutting your vegetables, you do not need to peel them. They're with the peel. That's very important because we want the fiber and we want the nutrients from the peel as well, which is right under the peel as well. So all we do now is just give this a mix, just to help the salt dissolve. Just mix it. You don't need any sugar or anything. Now, you might find this strange, the combination of salt and mustard seeds, but trust me, if you like a nice pungent drink, this is really refreshing, especially during the summer. It's really nice when it's nice and chilled. And yeah, it's really delicious. So all we do now is you keep this out in the hot sun. And if you don't have a very sunny place, you can even keep it inside on your pantry, on your countertop. Or in a dark spot, wherever you can, and just leave it for a couple of days. Keep stirring it at regular intervals. Just give it a quick stir and just let it be. In a few days, you will notice that it will turn sour on its own. It'll start fermenting, and you know it's ready when it smells sour and it's fermented. The color will change too, because the carrots and the beetroot will leach out a little bit of color in the water. And I'll show you how it looks like once it's fermented. So this has been fermenting only for 1 day. I did this yesterday. So you can see the difference in the color. All the beetroot has come. And you can see a layer of the mustard seeds on top. It turns into a white layer, but don't worry, that's not spoiled. Just give it a mix and you can, consume it. Of course, I like to chill it in the fridge. So once it's fermented, you put it in the refrigerator and enjoy it cold, because that's how it tastes best. And the vegetables, of course, you can have them as a side dish or add it to your salads, wherever you like to. So yeah, let's serve this up. This is, it's only been 1 day, but it's already a little sour because in Dubai it's so hot that it doesn't take too long to ferment. So depending on where you are and the climate you have, doesn't it look so pretty? It's very delicious too. And yeah, it's a great variation, and you don't need too much. A little short glass is enough. And it's very, very yummy. So here, this is how it looks like. So I've also served the vegetables on the side, and yeah. So hope you give it a go. It's really simple, as you saw, just a couple of days. And yeah, you don't really need probiotics on a daily basis, but it's good to include, like Doctor mentioned, once in a while. It's nice to have these at hand. Especially if you're on medication, then it's a great idea to have some probiotic. So thank you so much. And thank you, Doctor. And thank you, Chef AJ, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Vinita, for such a detailed presentation. It was really lovely to watch you. And while I was watching, I was just thinking that it's the sugar in the beetroot and the carrot that ferments. So how lovely to ferment something with natural sugars and actual sugar. And, I think that we know that it's good for us if we like the taste of it. I love it, so I know it's good for me. And honestly, I had never made it before, so it was lovely to see you make it, because now I think I might make it. It's so simple and easy to do.
Definitely is. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. And thank you all for being there. I thank my facilitators for being there and sharing their stories with you. And I really thank Chef AJ for giving us this opportunity to share our stories with you so that you can learn more about your health, learn some nice Indian recipes, and get healthy too. Bye for now.